Well, hello and welcome to the Narcissist Salesman, wanting and needing everyone to like me, disliking sobriety, and all that's impact on my work for DLA, the Pleasure Matrix, and its goals. This episode, we're going to talk about negative self-talk. Okay, now as I said on the last episode, this is part 6, I believe. 6. So, yeah, should be a good time. Thanks for joining. This series has just gone on to this whole narcissist. I just drank milk. Milk makes it hard for me to enunciate words. Always a bad thing going into phone calls or videos is to drink a glass of milk. But that's what I did. Okay. This episode is about negative self-talk in part. And a narcissist, I don't even know. I'm not even going to talk about like what a narcissist will do. I don't I don't know. I don't necessarily relate to all narcissists as a whole. Sure, I think, if I can figure out my own problems, maybe I can be an assistant to narcissists or the people who have really bad brain damage or just fucked up people in general. I think I could probably help them out through getting to the bottom of my own problems. But yeah, I'm not going to say narcissists do this, but what I say is, as a narcissist, what I do is, sometimes I will denigrate myself in the hopes that others will kind of fill in the gaps of like making sure so I can get some validation, because I guess I don't provide it for myself. And how does that work with sales? I don't know how much. I think where I maybe am abusing this is not being self-effacing enough in business, so then being like self-effacing, not even self-effacing, just like pathetic in private to make up for the fact that I'm not putting it out there in my business life. And I think that leads to creating my own resentments within myself. Sometimes I do that, and it's not necessarily a very good thing to do. When I was in the height of when I was taking a lot of drugs, and when I say taking drugs, the point where this was probably the most acute was actually probably when I was smoking weed the most. Because I think when I was smoking the most weed, and it wasn't very good weed, and it was just like permanently high when I wasn't at work. Basically, when I wasn't at work, I was hitting the bong, just getting really, really high, and I would just the weed would kind of make my mind kind of go to these places where I would just kind of I had all these mantras, and the mantras were like, I hate myself, I want to die, I want to kill myself. I would just say these things over and over and over again. And twitch and freak out and just do crazy stuff. And I think that came from a lot of weed smoking. And that stuck with me for years. It just was a thing. I don't know if I did that so much as a teenager and a kid, but I always talked to myself. That was always a thing. My brother talks to himself. I don't know if I don't think my mom really talks to myself. Maybe my dad does a little bit. We're just, our generation, I don't know, maybe it was the specific, I can't say that word, but the specific things that we were put on when we were born. But we like to talk to ourselves, and I just went down in more negative and more negative kind of thing, where that's what I said to myself. And yeah, that was kind of, holds a person back from sobriety. Because even if you're not doing drugs, if you're drugging yourself with all of this crazy kind of self-spiraling words and language and an atmosphere that you're building for yourself, you're just going to keep going down. So I never really worked that part of stuff out for myself. And I relied on I don't know. I think where it manifested later was just like me relying on other people to provide me some sort of like, I don't know, copium to get through things that I was trying to get through. How this kind of turns back to the theme of the episode. Well, the theme of the episode is self-talk, but the theme of the series, I think I dislike sobriety. I was talking about how like it's not sobriety to be talking negatively or creating these like whirlpools of self-pity and loathing and just like insanity. And I dislike sobriety because it gets in the way of agendas that, you know, are programmed in me that are like self-destructive agendas, or agendas that are there to kind of like be like, all right, I'm gonna trade in all the soul I have for like as much pain matrix reward as I can get. I still do that as part of this army, taking the soul that I'm buying back and like selling it wholesale. Just get it out the door, get it out the door. And that is an agenda that helps to be inebriated emotionally, intellectually, physically, to, you know, ease the, because it's not a fun thing. It's not a fun way to live your life. And I think I dislike sobriety because it stops me. Sobriety, being sober in all of those ways, doesn't make the inklings of doing those things. I also dislike sobriety because when I'm unhappy and sober, it's way more like, well, you know, I used to be unhappy and high. So in the moments where I am I'm happy about whatever's going in my life, or feel shame or guilt, or there's nothing to like kind of hide behind or something to point at to as an excuse. I remember I went to therapy one time. I went and saw a therapist one time because my friend's mom like paid for me to get a session because I didn't want to ask. I didn't have health insurance, and I think I was on my parents' health insurance program at some point. I didn't have health insurance through my work, and I did through my parents, but I didn't want to like, I don't know, tell them I was going to see a therapist or whatever. So I like asked my friend's mom, or my friend's mom offered to get me to a therapist for one session. And I was like, I am doing all these drugs and blah, 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 because my life sucks or whatever. That's what I was basically saying. And she was like, well, have you tried just not doing the drugs? And I was like, you don't understand. Probably the best therapist advice you could really get. It's just the therapist being like, have you tried stopping? And I was like, no, you don't understand. Why do I do the drugs in the first place? Because yeah, I mean, with taking, I was like, well, if I stop doing drugs, then who do I put the blame on? I gotta put the blame on myself, and it's not always fun to blame yourself. And I like to cast the blame away. Get that blame away. I got enough shame. Don't need to be blaming myself. So I just, you know. Fortunately, instead of blaming the people besides myself, because ultimately it is all down to me. I chose to be alive. I chose to be born when I was born in this specific time and thing. But instead of assigning some of those blame to some despicably bad actors out there, I just you know, put the blame on the people around me. Yeah, because they're close and I can see them close, and it's just easier. When I am selling something, I'm not typically as self-effacing as I am when I'm in private. Now, I don't really know. I think in the pleasure matrix there's room for a self-effacing salesman. And it might be just like the agree and amplify method that is taught at Daylife Army. We just watched 8 Mile recently. That's a good movie. At the end of 8 Mile, they're doing the rap battle, which is kind of like selling yourself, right? It's like selling yourself as someone. You have to sell yourself over your opponent. You have to win. You have to compete. And Rabbit, which is Eminem's character, gets to go first. And he says he just disses himself. Like, he says all of the negative things that you could say about himself, that we're just going to be part of the other guy in the rap battle's shtick, He just said it all first, so there's nothing left to say. And I think that's kind of where the self-effacing comes in business, where it can actually work. If you're willing to call a spade and lead with all your worst qualities, I feel like that would lead to getting all of that out of the way, so that you can't cancel me anymore because I've canceled myself. Self-crucifixion. So I think that's what honesty gets you in business. And I just, because I'm so just negative, self-talking myself into a hole in my private life, or just like my life outside of the public, which I guess is my private life, I kind of use up a lot of that energy that I would be using on the public, which is really where I should be. And good business, what is good, honest business? In the pleasure matrix, it's basically helping people buy back their souls. There's no real other business to it. It's comes from facilitating washes. And I would rather go the easy route than talk to people about their soul. I would rather go the route of asking for help or charity or whatever, as a means to getting through whatever is going on, rather than being like, no, I found a thing that works for me and it worked for the people I know. And would you like to buy your soul back? Negative talk just makes things so cyclical and effed up and repetitive, and that, I just get exhausted of all that face loss energy that could be going into face loss. When negative self-talk isn't face loss at all, but it's maybe draining my reserves in those places. I do notice that in times when I have implemented positive self-talk into my work week, work strong, at the beginnings of the day, when I tell myself that I'm actually good at what I do and whatnot, it does have a positive effect on my work. It certainly does. When I start the other way, it definitely has a negative effect. So, it's an unsober approach to be gassing yourself down. Sure, I'm sure that some people can take gassing up to probably a toxic degree, and where that would end up into insobriety, but you gotta build up your own opinion of yourself, and therefore the opinions of others. This is all like cliche shit. I don't know if you're coming to me for this information, but what I've learned I don't know, what positive, non-insane things should you say to yourself? I just go into sometimes work and being like, I'm very good at what I do, and I'm going to succeed in these areas today, and I'm gonna win. It's gonna be a great day. Blah blah blah. Just normal stuff. That it goes a long way. And the days where I'm like, I don't know what to do, I'm failing, nothing's working, nothing. That's my like. So I don't really go into like I hate myself, I want to kill myself, talk anymore. But I do go into the I don't know what to do. This isn't working. Everything's failing. Blah blah blah. Yeah, just more of that kind of talk, and that can be super harmful to good results. I've noticed. I can tell you firsthand. But yeah, when I go in positive and I'm like, the next few calls are going to be wins, or I am the best at what I do. I mean, which is true. You are the best at what you do. No one can do what you can do better than you can. Whatever that specific recipe of whatever you do is, you are the master chef. You are the one who can do it the most flawlessly. Alright, so yeah, I've been trying those things. I'm just trying to speak better about myself. Reading a book about it as a sign from DLA. So it's good to not be in a negative spiral, to not be in a spiral of self-talk and drug-induced paranoia and insanity. Not saying I'm not paranoid or insane at certain points in the cycle. Definitely does rear its ugly head, and if you think you're done, probably not done. There's probably something else that you gotta get through, but that's just life. Yeah, but I'm committed to doing better business and figuring these things out. So self-talk was randomly the topic for today's speech. Thank you for tuning in. We're gonna do this again. Another 6 times we're gonna be doing these videos on this live. So yeah, check in. Check out what's going on. Feel free to wash. Cash.me/$washitall. PayPal.me/washitall. And yeah, we'll talk soon. Okay, take care.